Hi there and welcome to the show. This is the College Problems Podcast, breaking down the more serious and lighthearted issues students everywhere are facing. And we're doing it mostly from a journalism, personal safety, and a young professor's perspective. I'm one of those professors. My name is Dan Reimold. Read my book, Journalism of Ideas, or check out my blog, College Media Matters. I'm joined today, as always, by the lovely and talented Christina Gaudio, a personal safety educator, victims advocate, and victimology professor. First college problem we're going to tackle today is movies in class. According to a new op-ed by a University of Central Florida student named Caroline Glenn, watching movies during class is, quote, a complete and utter waste of time. Here's part of what she said in her op-ed for the Central Florida Future, the student newspaper at the school. Quote, most college students don't have much time to spare, let alone gas to spare. So driving to campus and inevitably hunting down that elusive parking space just to get to class and find out you'll be spending the next 2 hours watching a movie seems like a slap in the face and the wallet. I'll be honest, if I walk into a class and find out it's, quote, movie night, I walk right out, because in the infamous words of Sweet Brown, quote, ain't nobody got time for that. So Chris, I show movies in class. I feel like they can be an educationally enriching experience, break up the flow of either just me talking or doing discussions or in-class reporting stunts as someone who teaches journalism. What do you think about the general point that she makes? Whether you agree overall, do you see anything valid coming from her perspective about the use of movies in a college classroom?
Yes, most definitely. I completely see where she's coming from. I see that when people who use movies just to put a movie on during class is just someone who's being lazy, who can't put together an actual presentation or an actual lecture for the students. But in some other ways, it's very good to use videos or video clips when you're using them in your presentations or in a lecture. I mean, my class, I have a victimology class.
Yeah.
My class is very visual, so you need movies. I will say I don't show full-length movies in all of my classes. The only one I do is during 9/11. I always do a class on that time frame around 9/11 because at this point, most of my students are younger.
Yeah.
They were in the elementary school age, so they understand that something happened, but they don't really grasp it. And I'll tell you the truth, it's not till after I show that video and we talk about my experiences and what it was like that they really seem to get it, and they have a lot more questions, and you can see it. But I'm not gonna. There's been times where there's tears coming down my students' faces at the end of it. So I think that there are times that movies are appropriate.
Students love viral videos. We're living in the so-called visual age in which everything now has to have a video. You know, students want to look at nice things and I think be engaged in a way that the old school chalkboard professor standing there in front of the room lecturing isn't really working for the millennial generation. I sort of get her point, though, in that if it becomes kind of overkill and I can throw out something in class that maybe they can watch on their own. I think she talks about, hey, if I can stream it on Netflix, why are you wasting my time in class sitting in an uncomfortable seat without even any popcorn? But I'm personally a huge fan of showing, snippets of things, as you mentioned, that just sort of break up the typical flow of a class. It's fascinating that she brings it up also from the economic perspective. That the idea of you maybe have 25 to 30 class sessions during a given semester. And, if the professor's lazy enough that they're throwing on movies for, 4 or 5 of those classes without the backup educational enrichment portion of it, and it's not for obviously a, film and society sort of class. I think she's right to be a little skeptical of, kind of the overall goal or the overall motivation of the professor.
Well, yes, most definitely. If she's putting that kind of money out, or her parents are putting that money out, or someone is putting that kind of money out for college, at the end of the day, she may be paying those loans back, and the last thing she wants to think about is that she watched that stupid movie in her class.
Yeah, I will say from a journalism perspective, the most popular film to show in any sort of journalism class is one known as Shattered Glass, talking about a real-life story of a very unethical journalist and ultimately how he was brought to justice by an upstart internet outlet, kind of showing the divide between old and new media. I could talk about it. I could make them do some readings on it, but to actually see it on screen and for them to connect with the acting of, someone like Hayden Christensen or Peter Sarsgaard, it's going to strike them and stay with them in a way that I never would, long after the semester ends. And I would hope, if Caroline's listening, that she would get that and respect that and not see it as, a waste of her money or the time she spends trying to find parking that night for the class.
There's always a clip I show in my domestic violence section, and it's the one that people always start the conversation in. it makes the guys and the girls in my class, they both have questions. They both want to know everything about what they've just seen, and oh my gosh, how could that have ever happened? So it's one thing for me to sit here and talk to you about it. It's another thing for you to actually see history. This is what happens, and now let's sit down and talk about it, and I can go from there. Yeah, it might be a 15-minute clip, but they're getting something out of it.
And it's being shown in a way that, again, I just don't feel like you can necessarily get from even a great guest speaker coming in and talking about it. We want to see things, especially nowadays. We want to be transported to that other world for a few minutes. I don't see any reason that can't happen in class, but I agree with her that I think her Caroline's main point is the idea of it being used as a tool for the lazy, or for the professors just checking out that day, or just the idea that I'm less concerned about the educational aspect of it and just more interested in, I'm going to entertain you today, and that's about that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about one other more serious issue that we would label as a definite college problem nowadays: strangers on campus, or just the access that outsiders have to what are supposed to be private, gated institutions in which parents feel okay leaving their kids at, thinking they are safe. And you even had a recent discussion in class with students and found that they were concerned about this, correct?
Yes, I did. My students actually, it was a topic we brought up. I asked them what was their biggest complaint on campus. And the majority of my students said how unsafe they feel, about how open the campus is to random people walking around, about how they turn their backs or look over their shoulders and there's somebody that they know does not belong on their campus, and how uncomfortable that makes them feel.
I feel like it's one of the toughest situations that colleges are put in, because you obviously don't want to be so cloistered and cut off from your community that A, you can't sell community enrichment and opportunities as one of the selling points, of why the school will matter, or the good that the students can do, or the things they can learn, and B, that you want to be accessible to prospective students, to visitors, making your campus a part of this larger community, that you are in, and yet keep the students safe. What do? Do we lock it down?
One of the biggest complaints I hear is that the gates, or I guess you would say places that are blocked off to people getting on campus, aren't really. They're very easily, you can step over them, you can walk over them.
I've always felt like they're more symbolic, or literally just architecturally beautiful to look at than actual deterrents to people who really want to get onto campus.
Yes, they're pretty, they're decorative, they're made to show people that the campus is closed. But at the end of the day, people are just climbing over them, walking over them, or just being, okay, whatever, and they don't care. I think that's one thing that campuses need to address. Their security measures really aren't up to par.
I remember a student newspaper at a university in Florida addressing a shooting that happened on campus, apparently by outsiders who had gotten access. Luckily, no one was hurt. It was one of those drive-by kind of shoot a gun into the night and drive off situations. They attempted, though, to see how safe campus was and how secure it was from outsiders by posing an older gentleman, literally looking almost Dick Tracy-like in a trench coat, positioning him outside various campus residence halls and other more private buildings that you technically would need swipe access to get into, and just wanted to see how long it would actually take the gentleman, who in no way looked like a typical undergrad student, to get into the various buildings without having any actual swipe card or other access. Apparently, most of the time when people were around, it was within 30 to 90 seconds because of just a good Samaritan nature of, yeah, we'll let you in, no problem, and no questions asked. I mean, there's the reality. It's almost as much the architectural ridiculousness as just the mindset we have of, oh, campuses are huge, we don't know anyone, we're all strangers. Well, I guess you're supposed to be here, you're probably a professor, if not a student, we'll let you right in.
Mm-hmm. Especially with students that complain about residence halls, like you said. They come out of their dorm and there's people walking through the halls which they know do not belong there. There's always a situation of people coming to and from gates, getting in and off campuses. There's lists of who you can't let on campus. Half the time, they're never looked at. So that person can still get onto the campus. There's a problem.
Most classic example is in recent semesters, an individual who posed as a Harvard University freshman and was able to crash on the couches of friends and classmates at the Ivy League school before it was revealed that he was not actually a student there and was just a lonely guy posing as, a Harvard University undergraduate to feel a little bit better about his life. So even at, the top-notch institution, at least academically in America, there is the situation that, there has to be a realization that we're not really ever totally secure on a college campus.
I think campuses just need to maybe open up and listen to their students. Their students realize what's going on, they feel uncomfortable, and that they need to maybe sit down and have a roundtable discussion with the students and maybe the faculty and see what they can do to make their students feel safer.
And bottom line, even better than a discussion, show a good film. Caroline might not like that at UCF, but it might get through to the students. All right, so that's our latest edition of our College Problems podcast. Please tune in next time. Thanks, guys, for listening.